Today, House lawmakers will vote on a bill to create a commission to investigate the January 6th attack at the Capitol. Some Republicans, though, are opposed to it. They argue the bill doesn't do enough to look at other violent acts that happened in 2020. Fox News correspondent Madeline Rivera reports from Washington.
More than 4 months following the January 6th riot at the Capitol, House lawmakers are inching closer to approving a bipartisan commission aimed at getting to the bottom of what happened that day and preventing another attack like that from happening again. The commission would be comprised of 10 members. Democrats and Republicans would be able to choose 5 to represent them. The members would have the authority to issue subpoenas.
Keep in mind, these would not be members of Congress who would be serving. These would be independent experts, civil rights, law enforcement, specific individuals who can help us ascertain what happened on January 6th.
Some moderate Republicans support the measure, but GOP leadership is opposed. On Tuesday, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy voiced his disapproval of the commission because it doesn't meet one of his demands, investigating the violent unrest involving Black Lives Matter protests in cities last summer. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell is also standing up against the bill, saying it's redundant.
It's not at all clear what new facts or additional investigation yet another commission could actually lay on top of existing efforts by law enforcement and Congress.
McConnell's decision could imperil any chances of the bill passing with 60 votes in the Senate. Democrats would need at least 10 Republicans to join them.
Getting at the truth is more important now that some Republicans are trying to rewrite history.
Another contentious piece of legislation being negotiated is a spending bill aimed at bolstering security at the Capitol. House lawmakers are expected to vote on that measure on Thursday. In Washington, Madeline Rivera, Fox News.